Hey guys, welcome to the unofficial recap. I'm your host Elena, and this time we're going to be talking about The Traitors Season 4, Episodes 4 and 5. They just were dropped in tandem last night, so let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so episode 4 starts where we left off. So Caroline, Eric, Kristen, and Ron are all tied to the trees by the masked little henchmen, and our traitors have to murder, and they're gonna do it face to face. So it goes a little back and forth. First, we're at breakfast, and everyone is coming in. First to arrive is Maura, Rob, Yam Yam, Natalie, and Monet, and they are all safe already, so they arrive first. Dorinda is scared that in her failure in the skull stacking challenge that she is going to let Lisa down. Little does she know Lisa is a traitor and cannot get murdered. So Dorinda's stressing out a little bit, but she really has nothing to worry about. She just doesn't know it yet. Natalie is telling the group that she thinks it's going to be Kristen or Eric who gets sent home, since they're kind of not really a part of a group and they're kind of free floating right now, and they're just really nice. So it would be no sweat off their backs really if the traitors were to murder them. People are also talking about Ron potentially being a traitor, and then dun dun dun, Ron is the first to arrive. So he walks in the door. He's our first safe one from the 5 that were eligible for murder. Really 4 because Lisa doesn't count. Natalie, because she's such a gamer, she literally is like, okay, let's try to ask Ron and everyone that comes in really specific questions and see if anyone slipped up anywhere. So she starts questioning Ron when he comes in about the details of him being tied to the tree and all of that. And he really just says, like, yeah, I was tied to a tree. Black henchmen came, cut me down, and they called it a day. And he was safe. And he said that he also heard people, like the traitors, walking around him, and they're like, how many do you think they were? And he says he thinks there were 3. He also in confessional says he heard a little tiny little bird footsteps because he thinks it was a small girl, and for some reason he assumes it's Maura and not Lisa or Candace or any of the other women that are there. He's like, she's the smallest little bird I know, and so he thinks it's her. And Ron, he's not dumb, he just keeps shooting in the dark and hoping that he's right. I mean, he thinks that he's so right, and then he leads people astray, and his social game sucks, so he can't bounce back from anything that he's been saying. Dorinda tells us that she still thinks that Ron is a traitor, still because of the Portia vote, which I think is a double standard. Everyone is coming after Ron for the Portia vote when really he wasn't wrong. Like, Portia threw herself out there. She kept saying things wrong, kept slipping up on her words. All Ron did was bring it to the round table. Sure, he could have discussed it with other people earlier. However, that wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep it and like have this big drop at the round table. I think Ron's undoing is his social game, because Colton did the same thing. Eric did the same thing with the Tiffany vote, as we'll talk about later, and they were able to bounce back and still have some standing in the house after that. So I think Ron's downfall is his social game. The next one of our vulnerable people to arrive is Lisa, who we know can actually get killed, but she comes in hooting, hollering, acting like as hard as she possibly can, doing a little too much. Candace says in her confessional, like, Lisa is doing a lot. However, she is a housewife, and that seems to be her personality. I haven't seen Housewives, so I'm not sure, but a lot of people are like, yeah, it's over the top, but it's also Lisa Rinna. Like, that's how she is. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't seem off to them. She's like, I need some water first before you guys come up with the questions. Gets her water, gets her tea. And she pretty much says the same thing that Ron said, that she was tied to a tree. Monet is like, oh, was the person, like the henchmen, like the ones with the gold mask, trying to throw her off? And she's like, no, it was black. And so she saw it happen multiple times, so she knows what happened, but she's, saying the right things. She says that she was tied to the tree. The henchman with the black mask came, told her to take off her blindfold, and had this big axe and cut her down from the tree, and she was able to go. And then Johnny's whispering like, oh, Ron never said anything about an axe. Like, that seems like a big detail to leave out. And they're still suspicious of Ron, even though it could be Lisa, like, giving too much detail. Next in is Eric, and he describes the same thing as everybody else that has come back, and we know he's a faithful, so he is right. He tells us in confessional that he heard a laugh while the traitors were walking around. He thinks he heard 2 traitors, but he did hear a laugh for sure, and he's going to keep that in his little pocket and keep it a secret until we find out later at Roundtable. So our last two are Caroline and Kristen, and dun dun dun, it ends up being Caroline who gets killed. And the first thing she says to Lisa when she gets out is, "Rinna, you bitch," which I don't know why she went after Lisa versus Candace, because they're both housewives, but maybe they have got history there. I'm not sure. Like I said it before, I haven't seen the show. And then Caroline says, like, "Lisa, like, I'm sure we'll see each other again at like BravoCon," and she says, "No, you won't." Child. She's so cold. They're really just playing into the being traitors. But yeah, they tell her that by decree of the traitors, you've been voted off, and she gets sent home. And in her confessional, she's thinking that the housewives would have each other's back. But I'm like, no, girl. If there's two housewives that are traitors, the smartest decision is to kill another housewife. And if they weren't going to kill you, I think probably either Kristen or Eric, definitely not Ron. But for me, if I was a housewife, I would kill another housewife just to throw the scent off me. So Kristen enters breakfast and she's happy, everyone's happy, but then they realize that Candace is the one who got voted off, so they're sad. Then Alan Cummings arrives and lets the group know that Caroline has been murdered in his dramatic fashion, slamming her portrait on the floor and breaking it. Tiffany thinks the murder has Ron, Yam Yam, and Michael written all over it and is trying to garner support from everyone. She pulls Kristen to the side and tells her, "I think you're really smart and I want to play with you. I think these three are the traitors." And Kristen's like, "Yeah, I've had suspicion for Ron, I mean from the jump," which everybody has. He's the safe answer to give. And while she's talking to Kristen, Colton is running wild, running amok on the whole castle, trying to get everyone after Tiffany. He was like, "We just got Donna out," and he's like claiming that he was the person behind that and the mastermind of it all. And he says, "We gotta take another big swing." And he is confident that it is Tiffany, and his reasoning doesn't even make any sense. He just said that she had three solid names. And it made it seem like it wasn't because she suspected these people, but because she wanted control in the house instead of it being that something that they had done. And so Colton is like, "I'm positive it's Tiffany. I think we should try to get her out tonight at Roundtable." And then cut to Rob in the confessional, who's one of our traitors, and he was like, "I mean, she wasn't a name that had been thrown out there." He's like, "I like Colton. I think he's a cool dude." But he's like climbing up the wrong tree. He's throwing out random names. But Colton's like, "You know what? The more the merrier. The more confusion we have amongst the faithfuls, the more infighting we have amongst them, the better it is for us traitors." So now it's mission time. Colton tells Natalie and Kristen in the car that he wants to make a play to go for Tiffany. So he keeps just telling more and more people. And I'm like, this is going to bite you in the ass eventually, because you need to have a small pool of trusted people, not telling the entire house and hoping that all of them are not traitors, you know? But we get to the mission, and today's mission is to find spears that are hidden in the forest. They can use these little hanging dolls as clues and directions as to where the spears are. Once they get their spear, there are 10 like gigantic little animal creature statues that they have to light the spear on fire and then stab it into the heart of the creature and light the whole thing on fire. And when they do, they have to yell out a name of someone that they want to make eligible for murder that night. So they split up into teams of 5. Monet tells Candace that while they're, splitting up into their teams, that she thinks that Lisa is a traitor. And then Lisa comes right up to them and says, "I want to be on your team." And Monet's like, "Okay, I guess we're just going to have to roll with it." But Candace, also being a traitor, she now knows that Monet has a suspicion of Lisa. Colton, Mark, and Kristen find their spear first, and they go for Ron, as he's a safe person to go for since he's had heat from the jump. Monet, Eric, Lisa, and Candace choose Tiffany, which I think is dumb since they already, that was going to be a secret and that was their play for tonight. So why, especially if you're not on Colton's team, why are we trying to get her after us as well? And then Tiffany pulls up saying, "I know the hell they didn't." Tiffany says, and then Tiffany's team comes up and she says, "On guard," and she stabs it in the V's, and she picks Monet because Monet just picked her. And she's like, "If I'm going to be vulnerable, then you're coming down with me." Rob, Mara, Tara, and Dorinda pick Michael since, again, it doesn't have a lot of backfire. People have already disliked him from the start of the game. Not even necessarily because they think he's a traitor, but because he's actually insane. Michael, Natalie, and Steven pick Tara. Michael's literally yelling Tara's name the entire way back into the forest. He only needed to say it once, but he's like saying it as if he's coming for her right then and there. While Candace and Lisa's team are searching in the forest, Candace lets Lisa know on the low that Monet is suspicious of her. So Lisa's like, okay, like, let me try to, get it together. Let me try to act right. Tara comes up and she picks for her team, and she picks Steven since he hasn't had anything really happen to him, so she thinks he'll still be safe. Colton's team picks Lisa because they didn't have an alliance with her and think she will also be safe. Ron's group picks Maura as he thinks she's a traitor because, like we said before, he thinks a little bird feed that he heard of someone really small when he was tied up to the tree is Maura. Michael's group picks Johnny since he hasn't been eligible for murder this whole time, actually. He's playing a pretty good game. So they pick him, and then our last spear is left, and Mark and his team pick Jam Jam. Jam Jam cries because he's so irritated. I'm sorry. I like Jam Jam. He just is too emotional sometimes when we need to be playing a more strategic game. Like, he won Survivor. Let's get the strategy going. Mara's like, why is he crying? Like, why is he pretending to cry? Which I'm like, same. I don't know why he's doing that. Tiffany tells Mara in the car that Ron picked her because he thinks she's a traitor and wants to see if she will wake up tomorrow. So that if she's eligible and she's still alive tomorrow, he's like even more confirmed on his belief that Mara is a traitor. Eric is still holding on to his secret on who he heard laugh when he was tied to the tree. Mark tells Maura about Colton's plan for Tiffany. Maura doesn't like it since she really doesn't think it's Tiffany. Colton is talking to literally any and everyone in the house, trying to garner support for the Tiffany vote tonight. And his only reasoning for wanting to pick her is that she has three solid picks for who she thinks are the traitors, and he thinks that in and of itself is suspicious. But I'm like, all the gamers, like, that's how they play. They pick their people, they have suspicions, they're very, very intuitive, they're very observant, and he, being that he's from The Bachelor, doesn't have that mindset. Okay, so now we get to round table. Colton starts it off by accusing Tiffany right away, saying, you're the traitor I'm going for too, based off of her plan to go for Ron, Jam Jam, and Michael. And he thinks it's based on strategy, and she has no facts to back up her suspicion, which I'm like, same thing for you, Colton. Tiffany says that Rob and Ian, which were the first two people voted off, were her, like, top people, which is true. Like, Ian's from Big Brother, so is Tiffany, and then Ron is a gamer, and they were tight. Like, he was telling her when the conga line was happening, he was letting her know, like, girl, don't get in the conga line because something is about to go down. So those were her two top allies. Why would she go for them, especially in the beginning, like, back to back? All of the faithfuls are so loud and so wrong. They do not know what they're going. They're just basing everything off of literally nothing, just a hunch, a feeling. They're not observing the facts. And Tiffany says that she wouldn't target gamers. Not only were they her top allies, but she wouldn't go for gamers. And then she turns to Jam Jam, and she says, but Jam Jam would. And then he's trying to defend himself, but she's like, I'm not talking to you right now. And so she goes back to Colton and is agreeing that, yes, she did suggest Ron, Michael, and Jam Jam, but was still a little bit unsure about Jam Jam. And Colton is still, like, strong in his feeling that it's Tiffany because of her not basing anything off of facts and thinking that it's more of a traitor strategy. And Colton compliments himself in this and says that he is very brave for speaking up, and he didn't need to, like, back to back, but he's like, I want to play a strong game and I want to take another big swing. Like, I could have gone with the easy vote, like Michael or Ron, but I didn't want to do something easy. I wanted to go do a big swing and go for you. Like, bro, and you're loud and wrong every time. I'm honestly shocked Michael hasn't said anything this round table, but I guess he hasn't felt attacked. Tiffany says, okay, write my name down then. And Colton's like, I mean, he did get her with this one. He was like, okay, it's with two F's or one? Because I'm not that smart, so I need to know how to spell it. And she spells it out for him. Ron jumps in and says Tiffany is all over the place because she goes from thinking Jam Jam's a traitor to saying, like, I'm not sure about him yet. And then Mara jumps in and says, well, so are you, Ron, because you said my name today. Like, where did that come from? And Ron says, well, he heard these very light, bird-like steps when he was tied to the tree. And Mara, I mean, she's like, I'll take it as a compliment because you're saying I'm skinny. But she calls him a liar and says he's about to do the same thing that he did to Portia to her. Then sweet baby Eric speaks up. Again, loud and wrong. Loud and wrong these people are. He speaks up saying he heard a laugh when he was pleading for his life when he was tied to the tree, and that he is 99% sure that that laugh belonged to Tiffany. And then he just digs his grave deeper, saying, I am a musician. My ears are fantastic. They're amazing. I can hear the same track over and over and over again and notice all the intricate details of it. Like, I produce music. He's like, I know what I heard, and it was Tiffany's laugh. And I think that him saying that was the nail in the coffin that sent her floating down the river of death, because if he didn't say that, I mean, I think it could have been more of a toss-up between Ron and Tiffany, but because he said that and was so sure and wrong, he sent her packing. And then Tiffany says, well, I think you may need another career, which is savage, but again, she's right. Like, he's basing this off of his music talent, and he's wrong. I think he just heard a woman laughing, and maybe a black woman laughing, and he immediately assumed Tiffany because Candace is playing a good traitor game, so he thought it was her when it probably was just Candace. Tiffany says, y'all are doing the traitors' work for them, which she's right. And she's upset because she truly needs the money. She needs to send her kid to college, and she starts crying at this point, getting emotional. And I mean, if I was a traitor, I would be sitting back enjoying the chaos that I didn't even have to work hard to cause or work at all. They haven't done a single thing to sow destruction besides the Congo line thing was the only thing they actually had to work for. Everything else has just fallen in their lap because these people are crazy. Candace jumps in and she says that she is afraid that what they're doing to Tiffany is what they did to Portia, and that she still thinks it's Ron, but that Tiffany still has compelling bullet points. They're just not as strong as her evidence against Ron, which, bravo to the queen traitor herself, because now people will look at that and be like, why wouldn't she just go with the majority and vote Tiffany out, you know? But Candace knows that Tiffany is safe, or that Tiffany is a faithful. She also knows that Ron is a faithful. And I don't know why she's like putting her neck out on the line for Tiffany, but because Tiffany's a faithful and she wanted to keep her, I think it'll make her look better in the future when people start dwindling down and she's one of the few left. Now it's time to vote. Pretty much everyone votes for Tiffany with the exception of a few people who voted for Ron, and then Tiffany herself who voted for Jam Jam. Rob, when he votes for Tiffany, says, I've listened to Eric's music and the man knows pitch, knowing he is dead wrong and is about to be made to look a fool. But I'm here for it. The traitors are doing fantastic this season. Tiffany, she gets voted out. She stands up on the circle of truth and she lets them all know that she is a faithful. Everyone is shocked, mouths open. Colton and Eric's jaws are on the floor because how could they be so wrong? Eric is distraught and he apologizes to the group, saying that he was so sure. Then we got confessional Colton. This man, literally right after failing, right after picking the wrong person, he still wants to play aggressively and still wants to take big swings when he's basing everything off of nothing. Michael's talking with Kristen, says he thinks that one of the three hunks, which to him are Colton, Rob, and Steven, he thinks one of them is a traitor because they're too swaggered out, they're too chill. So he's like, something's off about one of them, I'm just not sure which. Which he's right. He is right. Candace is emotional and she feels bad that Tiffany got sent home because she really is she's a emotional person at heart and she's also a traitor. And I'm like, you probably would have had to vote her out anyways, but in this case, she wanted to save her and she couldn't. Okay, so then it's bedtime. Everyone goes to bed and our traitors meet in the turret. They discuss the pros and cons of killing which of the 8 people that are eligible for murder. And that is the end of episode 4. So our people that are eligible are Ron, Jam Jam, Michael, Steven, Tara, Johnny, Monet, and Mara. Lisa is also vulnerable, but again, she's a traitor. And then Tiffany got sent home. I think it's just suspicious that Lisa has been vulnerable almost every time and still keeps getting saved time and time again, and people are just now wanting to throw her name out, and it's just Colton. Okay, so that is the end of episode 4, and now we get into episode 5. So it opens up with Eric still feeling bad about sending Tiffany home because, I mean, his words and what he thought he heard was the reason that she was the nail in her coffin, like I said. Ron's name is thrown around again, and Dorinda says he has made no effort to connect with anyone, doesn't talk to anyone about his life, and doesn't ask anyone about their lives, and just kind of mopes around the castle. Colton said he messed up and wants to own it, and he wants to do better this next time. Kristen thinks there's something fishy about Colton. He is able to just whip up votes, and she's like now trying to keep an eye on him. Which, like, yeah, I don't know why Colton is trying to play such a strong game. Also, Colton, you're a horrible person. I hate to say, you're pissing me off every time you're on screen. What you did to Cassie from The Bachelor, I still have not forgotten about. Yet, somehow they're trying to give you this redemption arc. I'm not here for it. And I'm glad that you're not getting the sweet, nice little boy edit. And I'm glad people are starting to see you for your true colors. So the next group that arrives is Ron, Michael, and Jam Jam. Nobody is really that excited or clapping to see Ron, and he tells us to camera that he's like, no one's really clapping for me, and I haven't had that little applause since I was doing open mic nights, which he's supposed to be a comedian. He hasn't said anything funny. He's just been sad, a sad little mope around the whole castle. Colton's time on The Bachelor gets brought up and how he was straight, but then later came out as gay, and Dorinda says, well, damn, I guess she missed the window to get with him at that time, and Colton's like, well, you dodged a bullet, which sounds like it because he was going crazy and being stalkerish back then. Next walk in Maura, Lisa, and Steven. They're like, is there any salmon left? And I'm like, what's up with the food? This is a whole franchise and they can't get more than one plate of salmon? And why does the spread look horrible? And they don't have nothing. They got hard-boiled eggs, salmon, a croissant, maybe some fruit. Let's get some more options out there. The last group arrives and there is no Monet, so they're all so devastated that Monet Exchange got voted out. The traitors said they had to vote out Monet because she said Lisa's name, and because of that, they didn't want anyone else to hear about that, and they're hoping that she just told Candace and didn't tell everybody else. Candace, it's starting to get to her. Being a traitor starting to get to her. She feels bad about killing Monet because they were close, and she confided in her and who she thought the traitors were, and that ended up being the reason she got killed. Lisa says, like, they would never vote for Ron right now, at least because the faithfuls are getting close to uncovering them, and they need another target. After breakfast, everyone's kind of talking. Kristen asks Lisa, like, why do you think it's Ron? And she, can't think of anything. She's like, oh, many reasons. I can't remember why. She just can't, she's not good on the fly. Tara jumps in and says he shifts the narrative, and that's why we don't like him. And Tara, bless her, has no idea what's going on. She does not know how to play this game. She's an ice skater. She's a figure skater. Very talented one. But she's not good at the gameplay aspect of this show. Michael, Maura, and Rob are talking, and Michael and Maura think it's time for Colton to take some heat for being the ringleader on a bad vote, and he could be steering people wrong on purpose because he is a traitor. They think he's a traitor, which I'm like, okay, finally, everyone jumped on Ron immediately after his bad vote, and they have not jumped on Colton like that yet. Eric and Mark ask Ron his thoughts, and he says he thinks he's on the chopping block, but then that he thinks it's Dorinda and Michael who are the traitors. Colton comes into the room with Kristen, Candace, Eric, Jam Jam, and they discuss who they think it is. Jam Jam, of course, thinks it's Michael. They've had back and forth beef since the beginning. Candace and Kristen are on Ron still because he doesn't do anything all day, doesn't try to make any connections with anyone, doesn't strategize with anyone, and still comes home from being eligible for murder every single time. And that he keeps showing up to the round table with out of left field ideas or quotes from people or accusations that he hasn't told anybody else, and he keeps throwing off what the group is trying to do. And they feel like he's not trying to work together as a team with the faithfuls. They think he's trying to throw everybody off. Kristen is secretly suspicious of Colton because he always asks other people who they are thinking about, and then he kind of adjust to whatever narrative that group is trying to talk about, and that he reverse engineers it to make them think that he's also like been thinking the same thing when he always asks other people first. And Kristen pulls Candace aside and she tells her she's just the trusted person by everyone. Okay, so now it's mission time. They must dig in this like gross murky water, this red water, find these little coins, and on the back of the coins is going to be the location of a statue. So they have to go to that statue, pick it up, carry it all the way back to the fountain, and place it around the fountain to restore it. And once they do that, they can spin the little wheel and the water will start shooting up. So, and there's also a twist for this mission. Underneath every statue is going to be a shield, or in some cases multiple shields. But if one person picks a shield, then somebody is going to get murdered that night. But if nobody does, then they're all safe. So it's about trusting each other, trusting your fellow faithfuls, and hoping that a traitor doesn't get the chance to take a shield and murder. So the mission starts, everyone jumps in the water. Candace and Lisa take their sweet time because they are housewives. Okay, they exude elegance and they don't want to get in the water, but they're like reluctantly getting in, trying to help. Eventually they find a coin with the location. The teams head out for the shields. Colton is saying he's suspicious that someone else will take a shield, so he wants to convince his team who happen to have 2 traitors on it, but he wants to convince his team that he doesn't know. Colton wants to try to convince his team, literally made up of 2 traitors, that they should, maybe think about taking shields, since, it may not be a bad idea if we can all do it and then all trust each other and keep it a secret. And lo and behold, on the last statue that his team goes and finds, there are 4 shield necklaces there, and they kind of discuss like if they should take it or not. Natalie, Johnny, Dorinda, and Michael's team also find 4 shields at the bottom of that statue, and I don't know if they talked about it at all or if anyone took any, but they end up completing the mission on time and getting $16,000 added to the prize pot, so now they're at a total of $106,000. My suspicion is that someone took a shield. I do not trust the 20-something people that are left in there to not have one person take a shield. I know none of the traitors did, which we'll find out later, but I feel like someone had to have taken a shield. I don't know. If you guys think someone did, let me know in the comments below. Okay, so back at the castle, Ron is suspicious of Dorinda and Michael still, and that they were on the same team. So if any team had time to sneak away and steal a shield, he is suspicious that it is them. Dorinda and Steven are talking in the library room, and Ron walks in, and Ron literally tells Dorinda to her face that I think you're a traitor, and that he also thinks Michael is one too. Dorinda's taken off guard, but also she's like, Ron, you've made no attempt to do anything. Like, why would I am not a traitor. I think you're a traitor. Colton, Rob, Jam Jam, and Natalie are talking in the kitchen about the move tonight, and Jam Jam wants to go Michael. So yeah, Colton says that everyone that voted for Michael night 1 is gone except for Jam Jam, and he's been the one that's most vocal. So then Michael comes in, is getting food and everything, and they're kind of talking about who they think it is, and Colton annoyingly asks Michael if that Alan stays in his outfit when he goes to the turret, insinuating that Michael has seen Alan in the turret because Colton thinks Michael is a traitor. Michael starts laughing in like an annoyed way, and he's like, I have no idea. Colton and Michael go back and forth, and Michael is saying, for someone who was just super loud and hella wrong, I would have thought you would have stayed more low-key and not trying to do too much tonight, because you just voted out Tiffany and she was a faithful, so now you're still doing a lot. Colton's like, that's not how I play. If I miss when I shoot, I'm shooting again, and tonight I'm shooting you. I'm like, Colton, you're all over, bro. I need you to just go with the group for once instead of trying to be the captain of every single vote. Traitor Rob is sitting there living for the chaos. He's also in the room with all of them. And he was like, I mean, I don't have to do anything. It's just destruction amongst themselves. Natalie goes to tell Kristen, Stephen, and Mara that she is still thinking Michael's a traitor because when Colton asked him about Alan being in the turret and if he still wears the same outfit, it seemed like Michael got a little flustered. And then he calls everyone that like has voted with Colton the Colton killers, which Michael just kills me sometimes. He's crazy and says a lot of out of pocket stuff, but sometimes every now and then it is funny. Michael's on a rant. He is flying through the castle telling anybody who will listen, not even if they're trying to listen, because he's screaming that Colton is a traitor and is on a rant. Kristen and Mark leave the room. They go to the kitchen to tell the rest of the crew. Colton said he did get flustered when they asked about Alan. Rob says, but like, it's Michael. And bam, Michael rushes in the door. What's Michael? And he's yelling at Colton like he's a traitor. He's a little ringleader and he's a bad one. And like, we all need to vote him out type of thing. Which Michael's just doing too much. You know, he's giving them he's making them want to vote him out by acting this way. Colton says that he wants to be responsible for sending Michael home, and I don't think he even cares if he's right. So now we're at the round table. Candace opens up the table asking to address the shouting that had happened earlier. And I just love how Candace holds court. She's very good at it without drawing too much suspicion to herself. So she asks that. Michael explains it was from conniving, commiserating Colton being a traitor. And he says that last night when Tiffany went home, Colton was the ringleader, and now he is trying to do it again, but he's trying to do it again at Michael's expense. He says, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm isolated because of Colton. Conniving, commiserating Colton. Then he says, if anyone was capable of keeping a secret, it's you. And Colton's like, ooh, there it is. There it is. And Colton is saying that he didn't want to keep him being gay a secret for 29 years. He didn't want to live in the closet for that long. And Michael's like, whoa. I'm not saying anything about your sexuality. I'm just saying that you are capable of being a traitor because of all of boom, all these qualities that you hold. I don't know if Michael meant it about being gay. I personally don't think so because it just doesn't seem like a good move on his part. I think he really just meant because Colton has been really shady this whole time against certain people, and him included, and so I think he was more so meaning it that, but I'm not 100% sure if he did mean it in the way that Colton took it, and a lot of people took it that way, so maybe it's true. But yeah, the response is everyone's kind of disgusted with Michael, and they pretty much, I think that sealed his fate when he said that, and everyone didn't care if they were getting out a traitor or not, they just wanted Michael gone. He's still yelling, still saying that Colton's commiserating. Rob jumps in and says, commiserating means to be sad for somebody. And he's like, no, it doesn't. And Rob's like, yes, it does, which it does. And Michael, again, loud and wrong. That should be the title of this episode because everybody has been loud and wrong. Colton says he made a mistake with the Tiffany vote, but that he can own that, and now he thinks it's Michael. He says 4 people who voted for Michael on the first night are gone, and now there's only one, and that's Jam Jam. That's why I'm suspicious of you. Michael's like, so what? I'm just getting all the traitors to vote for the people who voted for me? Like, you think I have that kind of power? And then Ron jumps in for God knows what reason, and he was like, no, I think it's you, and I think it's Dorinda. I think Dorinda's controlling it, and you're just her pit bull. And, like, that Dorinda's the one pulling the strings. Dorinda says Ron is going for the housewives and that she has tried to get to know him. She's tried to ask about his family, and he doesn't say anything and doesn't seem to care. Ron jumps in and was like, I don't care about your family. My family is none of your damn business. So let's just move on. Dorinda thinks Ron is a traitor. Candace jumps in and says she will be voting for Ron, and Dorinda says she agrees. Michael chimes in saying, first Ron, and then we can get out Colton because he's a traitor. He keeps trying to steer the conversation back to getting Colton out. Child, this was a doozy. Colton says, you are lucky to have made it this far, and Natalie backs him up and says the way you spoke to Colton was the last straw, and I think we should all just band together and vote you out because what you said was so inappropriate. And I'm on our side. If that's what he meant by it, like, yeah, we all need to get him out. Eric says, if you are faithful, you are the most distracting faithful ever. But if you're a traitor, you're playing a great game because you're. And I think what he means by this is that Michael's ability to rage bait and cause confusion and cause chaos is next level. I'm also surprised he's made it this far because they've been talking and throwing his name out since episode 1. And then Michael responds to Eric and says the man with the magic ears, which is just so funny. Like, he's crazy, but it's so funny because, yeah, Eric literally's whole evidence about getting Tiffany out was that he has trained ears and knows what he heard, which he was wrong. Colton says he doesn't even want to be in the same room as Michael anymore. And then Michael's still yelling, and everyone's like, just shut up. Like, it's over. Alan comes in and says it's time to vote. The votes are mostly for Michael, some for Ron, but he gets the majority of the votes. And in his speech, he says, as he said he would, that you just voted out the best looking, smartest, dopest, faithful. And boom, mic drop. People were not really thinking he was a traitor, so it wasn't as big of a blow as probably Tiffany's vote was. But still, they voted out yet another faithful, and the traitors did not have to do anything. So Michael ends up going home, and Alan comes in, and it's like, there may or may not be a murder tonight, because we don't know if anyone took a shield, and I'm not going to reveal it. So people are still freaking out. They're not sure if there's going to be a murder tonight. Kristen, Eric, and Mark talk that it may be Colton who is a traitor, as he has thrown out a lot of different names and he seems to be controlling all of the votes. True, but they're just wrong. They're still wrong. It's not a bad move or not a bad thought. They're just wrong. Candace, Tara, and Johnny talking, and they also throw out Colton's name and saying that he seems suspicious and he's moving really crazy and he seems to be playing the game really hard. Colton goes and talks with Dorinda, Rob, and Mara and Jam Jam, and he asks Dorinda, is Lisa like normally this quiet? And Dorinda's like, you know what? No, like, I'm also kind of surprised at how quiet she's been at round table. Like, she's normally not like this. And Colton says he has been suspicious of Lisa since voting for Portia on night 1, which I said, like, bro, why would you do that on night 1 when you're a traitor, knowing that you're a traitor? You can't vote for a fellow housewife as a housewife. It's going to look suspicious. And Colton points out 2 things, that she always wears sunglasses in the house, which I never really noticed, I guess. But I'm also like, it's Lisa Rinna, like, I don't know what rich people do. He tells them all to watch her at breakfast tomorrow because she is always over the top with her reactions. And that he thinks it doesn't seem genuine. Which, like, yeah, I said the same thing. I mean, luckily she is who she is, and that's kind of her personality, is to be dramatic, but it seems over the top. Rob is not happy that Colton is throwing out his fellow traitor's name, and he says he wants to protect them, and he likes working with them and likes doing this with them, but he can only do so much without getting himself in trouble. So that's the day. It's bedtime now. Everyone goes to bed, and our traitors come out to play. They are meeting in the turret, and Rob lets Lisa and Candace know that Colton has been throwing out Lisa's name. And that Colton is coming for her and tells her that you're too quiet and that you need to speak up more. And Candace is like, yeah, you need to talk more. And she's like, you're right, I'll do better. And they're like, shoot, if Colton is saying all this, then we need to vote him out. So they're like, yeah, let's vote Colton. And that's the end of the episode. And we don't know if anyone took a shield. None of the traitors did. They all said they didn't take a shield. And he was like, I was hoping you guys were able to since you were on the same team. But we don't know. So we don't know if there's going to be a murder tonight. Or not tonight, but the next night. So yeah, that's the end of episode 5. I'm thinking someone took a shield because I can't imagine none of them were feeling vulnerable. So I feel like someone took one if they were able to secretly, but I'm not sure. So we'll find out next week with episode 6. But I love this show. It's getting good. I'm really excited to be covering it. So yeah, comment down below if you think anyone took a shield. Also, let me know who you think your favorite traitor is. So far, I'd say mine's probably Candace because she's really flying under the radar. where Rob and Lisa have maybe been brought up. Lisa the most, but Rob was brought up by Michael. So I think Candace is just doing a fantastic job about being a traitor. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.